Hey guys, my name's Kaylee and this is Midnight Coffee. Tonight I'm going to share with you a dream that I had a couple months ago. It was actually the night that I did my first live broadcast with you guys. I wrote it all down though, so I'm going to be looking down a lot because I don't remember a whole lot of it. I believe it's an end times dream, but if you guys want, you can help me interpret it by putting your thoughts in the comments below. To give you a background before I start, right now I'm currently living with my husband, and we moved all the way across country away from my parents. That'll help with the beginning part of the dream, um, just because, well, I'll just get into it. So, the dream that I had was I was back with my parents and my sister, and we were driving into a town, but it wasn't my town that I used to live in. It was just a town. And out of the window of the car, I could see that there was crazy lightning going on, just a crazy, crazy lightning storm. And as soon as I looked out the window, there were almost 7 or 8 bolts of lightning that hit the ground at the same time. Um, They were all coming from the sky, and the sky was really completely dark, but I could make out the clouds in the sky. They were like a light gray color. It was pouring rain, and we were all in a rush. And because of that, there was a big traffic jam right when we got into town. Nobody was moving. Um, I could see up ahead in a couple cars, people were getting pulled and dragged out of their cars by what looked like um, not really police officers, but I could tell that they were like people who were in charge. And they got pulled out of the car, and I saw someone try to fuse and fight them to get out of their car. And when they did that, the people pulling everybody out just beat him up. They didn't really care. It wasn't a huge deal, but they did beat him up. So when they got to our car, I just simply opened the door and walked out. Um, and I had the rest of my family do that as well. Uh, they were pretty surprised by that because everybody else was kind of fighting to leave their cars. They didn't want to. So when we just calmly walked out, they didn't like grab us or put their arms on us or anything. Um, they just told us to follow them. Um, when we started following them, I was behind everybody, and I told the rest of my family to run because their backs finally turned on us, and they were walking up to these what looked like apartment buildings, but I don't think they were. Um, but we were walking up to these apartment buildings, and I told everybody to run. But when I yelled that, everybody turned around, not just my parents. So the guys who were taking us inside turned around as well. And my parents kind of stood there with like deer eyes. They didn't know what to do, so they just kind of stayed with the people taking us inside. But my sister ran with me, and we started running away, and I turned back, and my husband was there with us now, and so it was me, my sister, and my husband all running away. We got to this abandoned store, and in this store, we closed and locked the doors, and I shut all the windows. But my sister was being really weird and looking out the window, the big store window front of the place, and she was just looking out at watching the chaos, I suppose. And I had to pull her forcefully away from the window because we had to close it to hide our cover. And my husband was looking around the store, kind of trying to show me all the stuff that was in the store. And when I looked at it all, I realized that it was a quilting or like a sewing shop. And I used to sew and make quilts a lot when I was younger. And so I thought to myself, it was a good thing that I learned how to sew if we were going to be hiding there, because I figured we might be there for a long time. Um, I walked upstairs, and there was a loft that was big enough for 2 people, and I thought that was useful as well, and, but while I was up the stairs, I looked out the upstairs window, and um I noticed these people out standing outside in a line, and they were all wearing yellow vests, and, they were all just walking in a line, all facing the same direction, walking, almost marching towards the store that we were in. And they were all wearing yellow vests with guns, and, I assumed that they were formed in a circle or, like, a big shape around the building that we were in, and they just kept walking, closing in on us. I found a window where I couldn't see them out of, and, I kicked it out, and I took my husband with me, and just before I could grab my sister, they, uh, broke in the door and, came in, and, my husband and I were able to leave, but we had to leave my sister there, and, when we walked away or, like, were running away from the store, there was no more we couldn't hear any shootings, so that I thought was interesting because they all had guns on. Um, then in my dream, some time had passed and it was a different scene. My husband and I had found another house that we were going to hide in, like a safe house in the woods. And eventually, the yellow vest people were there again, there too. And they never shot at us, not the entire time, even when they saw us. They had made it all the way into the house this time. And one of the guys, like I was super close to uh, getting caught by them, but one of the guys who was in the line had let me go, and the person who was in charge of him got really upset and really mad. And while I was crawling out the window to get out of the house, he threw his knife at me, his pocket knife at me, and it hit my ear, just the end of it. And it was so sharp that I was just able to pull my ear off and slip out the window. And my husband was already out the window and running away. Again, some time had passed, and we had like literally just found a new hiding spot. Like we just got from point A to point B, and this was brand new. While we were there, we heard noises and people outside, like shouting and hooting and hollering and stuff. And we got to the back window, and my husband lifted up his arms to open it. And when he did that, I heard a grunt, and he got shot in the side by what looked like what I suppose would be a 22 caliber bullet. But all I heard was him grunt. I wasn't paying attention to him opening up the window. When I looked over, he was on the ground, holding his side, and there was blood coming out. And we tried to get him up, but he wouldn't stand up. Whatever it pierced paralyzed him, and I wasn't able to carry him or move him. So he told me to leave him there, and I looked out the window, and there was like this group of people just coming closer towards us. And I didn't want to leave him there, but he told me to leave him there. And I finally ran away out of a different window. And when I got far enough away, I turned back, and I could hear his screaming in the background, and I just automatically assumed in my head that the people who caught him were cannibals, and they killed him right there. And then I ran away. Some more time had passed, and I was still in hiding. By this time, it was a lot of time that passed. It wasn't just a couple short days like before, but this time a lot of time had passed. I had found a bike, and that was the only thing that I could operate without needing this new special chip that everybody had in their hand. I assume it was their hand because when I found the bike, I was also wearing gloves, and I think that I was trying to hide my hands to show that I didn't have one. I had found fancy clothes, and I was riding this bike through a neighborhood, acting like I was just using the bike for exercise. I had gotten some looks from people who were around the neighborhood, but there were other people riding their bikes around too, so it wasn't super suspicious. Um, I was going to I was trying to find this safe house that I had heard about, just talks that I never really found out if it was actually a place. Um, and then I had wrote this down because I told my husband about it, but to put it in some context, everyone needed a chip to do anything, to own a house, to drive a car, to have kids, to even simple stuff like check out a book from a library. Everything required a chip except for riding a bike with no motor. Also, at this point, the yellow vest people would shoot you. I realized that they didn't before because they were giving people a chance to take the chip or not. And when I realized this, I realized that my everybody in my family did take it. That's why my parents went into the house with these guys, and that's why they didn't shoot my sister when they found her. Um, so I was riding my bike through this neighborhood, and I got on a dirt path, and there was a biker who was riding kind of next to me, but also kind of ahead of me. And and we were spiraling down this road, and we talked to each other. So he was going to the same place that I was, and in the distance, I could see this huge mansion. It was bigger than anything I've seen in real life, and then I woke up, and that was it. That was the end of it. Some points I wrote, though, when I was writing all this down were uh, people with the chip acted hive-mindish, like they all, like if one person was looking at you with the chip, you could assume that multiple people were staring at you as well. Um, I was able to escape so many times because I feel like I had some kind of protection, like something was looking out for me. Um, I also realized that there were still different groups of people out there. Like it wasn't just people with the chip and people without one, because there was that cannibal group too. And there were also homeless people who were among the people who had a chip. And people like me without the chip were feared, but not completely hated. They were more so considered disgusting, like animals or rats. That's why people didn't like them. Um, I realized that it seemed like there was chaos for a little bit, and then just quiet while everything was rebuilt and put back together, and then almost a normal feel of life if you had the chip. But the chip didn't guarantee any kind of structure. There were still homeless people with the chip, just not so many criminals. They considered the people without a chip criminals. And then at the end, uh, when I was looking back at the dream, I realized that um, the lightning bolts in the beginning, I think that was when that was the rapture happening. That was like the lightning bolts were people getting taken up into the sky. That's why there were so many lightning bolts at one time, unlike what we see right now when it's just one or two at a time. It was a lot at a time. But nobody I was around ever got raptured or ever got taken up. Um, most of the people I was just took the chip and settled down. But that is the end of it. So if any of you have any interpretations of that, or you could help me try and understand that a little bit better, this is the first time that I've ever had an on-time type dream. But if anybody has any interpretations, that would be extremely helpful. Um, Also, if anybody has any comments or questions about that I can answer for my next videos, feel free to ask. Also, if anybody needs any prayers, just put your prayer requests down in the comment box, and I'll be sure to add you to my prayer list. Y'all have a good night, and God bless, and I'll see you next Wednesday.